Fantasy Wrap
with Austin and Ozzy.
Oh, I just love those boys.
Hey everyone, this is Fantasy Wrap, and I'm your host Ozzy.
And I'm your co-host Austin.
You can find us on fantasywrap.com. That is fantasywrap.com. Hey everybody, welcome to the follow-up to Week 11. It was an interesting week.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of big players, big players. But we'll start off with how we did. How'd you do?
I went 2-3 this week.
2-1.
Sorry, yes, 2-1. My bad. Jeez.
Picked up 2 extra teams along the week.
Won both the Dynasty Leagues and
Nice.
lost in the Yahoo League. My team completely crapped the bed in the Yahoo League, and I really needed a win in that. I am now in 11th place.
Oh.
Yep. And
8 make the playoffs?
6.
6 make the
Yeah.
playoffs.
So half the league makes it, half the league doesn't.
Gotcha.
So I need to win out in the next 3 weeks. So, but yeah, Dynasty, I guess I haven't even checked the standings on the one that we're in together.
You're in the playoffs.
Sweet. And then I'm 2 spots out in the other Dynasty that I'm in with Nick. So picked up a win in that one, and and then this week is the trade deadline in that league. So
Yeah.
got a couple players I might be offloading for some picks for next year, or trying to get some youth,
Yeah.
and replenish the roster a little bit. So we'll see.
Yep. I had a bad week. I went 1-2. You saw that I lost in our Dynasty League, which, I mean, with all the injuries that I've got, and then CMC didn't play well, and AJ Brown didn't play well, and
Felt that one.
CeeDee Lamb didn't play well, and I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
But I still hold a commanding second place lead at 9-2.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not overly worried. I think next are you guys at 6-5.
Yeah.
So I've still got that buffer.
Yeah, that's what's like in my Yahoo League. Even though I'm in 11th, like, so if I win out, I can still make it. Like the middle teams, like I think first place he's was it week 11? So he's like, I think he's like 9-2 now, or 10-1 even. Second place is like 7-4 or something like that, and then the rest of us are all like a game apart.
6-5, 5-6 type of thing, or
I'm 4-7, so I'm
Okay.
get technically 2 games back.
Gotcha.
But we're all really close, and then like for me, and then the 10th place team, we're like number 4 and 5 for points scored in that league. So I put up big games when I don't need to, and then when I need to, like I was sub 100 points in the Yahoo League. So
ouch. Yeah. So I ended up losing in the league that I won last year, one of the 2 that I won last year. However, it's an 8-team league, 8-team league, and 6 of the teams make the playoffs.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm sitting at 6, and I play Karen this week. So knowing Karen, she won't be filling out a roster. And then I won in my 32-year league. Big game out of Goff.
Yep.
Not such a big game out of pretty much anyone else. But when you get 40 points out of... I mean, I put up 100 and some points, so it's not like I didn't score.
Yep.
But my opponent had 90. I had texted you I needed 3 points going into my with my defense, and we can't go negative. So once they had the interception, and I think, a sack early in the second half, I was like, okay, we're all good. Then they scored the touchdown. Then they had 3 sacks on one series, and so they scored me plenty of points, and so I'm in first in that one, guaranteed a playoff spot.
Nice.
And if I win this week, I am guaranteed first in my division, which gets me an extra $25 or something like that. So.
Sweet.
Moving on, we've got our injuries of the week. Darnell Mooney starting off day-to-day with a hamstring issue. I don't know when it happened in the game. I had him playing because Neighbors was out.
Was he banged up going into the week?
I don't think he was.
I couldn't remember if he was banged up going in.
Because I had him, I played him over DJ Moore.
Yeah.
And actually, I think I should have played DJ Moore. But like 2 points different.
Yep.
But not a big deal.
Yeah.
But that could hurt them going forward.
Yeah, they
were bad.
They got kind of stomped by, was it Denver, I believe? Yeah, they got kind of stomped by Denver. So, that defense is really good. And,
right.
You take away your deep threat with Mooney and, that doesn't leave. Drake London is good, yes, but, he's never really been a down-the-field kind of guy.
But
so.
Bijan had a bad game.
Yeah, Denver's defense is
Cousins had a bad game. Kyle Pitts pretty much disappeared. I think he had one catch for 7 yards or something.
Never heard that stat line out of him before.
Right? and I kept Ertz on the bench, which it 1-1 me the game, but it would have put it a lot closer. Mm-hmm. Next up, we've got Allen Robinson. I didn't even know he was still playing football.
Yeah, what team is he?
Huh?
Was he on the Steelers last I heard or something? I can't remember.
I don't even remember.
Yeah.
He is in concussion protocol.
Okay.
Not a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
Next, couple of running backs from the same team, and that's Alexander Madison and Jameer White, both week to week with an ankle for Madison and a quad for White.
Yeah.
That's troubling. In the sense that
Vegas.
that's what I mean.
What I've been trying to do is just target any matchup with Vegas for your, if you're streaming a defense, you could even throw out Carolina probably against Vegas and they'll get you 10 points.
I was thinking you could throw anyone against Dallas.
That too.
And get 10 points.
They were horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. So.
Next up, we've got Jacob Cowing. He's in the concussion protocol. Again, not a huge name, but he has seen some targets over the last few weeks. Next up, Laviska Shenault, day-to-day with an oblique injury. Doesn't have a lot of value.
I can't even remember what team he's on.
I don't know, but he had a big kick return 4, 5, 6 weeks ago.
Carolina?
Maybe.
Because he was drafted by Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got, and like I said, these are, it's interesting because almost every week it's a bunch of big names. And usually they're on my on your one league, one roster that I just have no one to play.
Yep.
Next up, Tajay Spears, concussion protocol.
Yeah, that dude just can't stay on the field.
No, unfortunately for him.
That's fine by me being a Pollard manager.
Right.
Which Pollard was absolutely dog
poop
this week. I kind of figured going into the week with obviously facing Minnesota, but would have been nice to get more than 4 points.
yeah, it probably would.
So yeah.
Next up, we've got Jake Ferguson, also in concussion protocol. Left the game, first or second quarter?
Yeah, pretty early.
Yeah. They had to rely on some of their other tight ends, and they actually played pretty well. So, moving on, we've got our studs. Taysom Hill. God, I struggle with Taysom Hill because, again, it's feast or famine.
Mostly famine.
And then he goes off and he's plus 28.04 points.
Yeah.
When
he feasts, that's when they kick you out of the buffet for eating all of the food.
Well, and the funny thing is, I still don't like him as, what position does he play?
Well, I think he still is quarterback and tight end.
Yeah,
I believe in most.
Could he be a running back?
I think at one point,
are almost all of his runs from the QB position?
I don't make it a point to watch Saints games.
It's
anymore,
kind of like when I had
Yeah.
Placido Polanco in fantasy baseball, and because of the fact that he actually played second, short, third, outfield, I think he was. I don't even know. Maybe he was also first baseman eligible.
No.
But he was a great player to have because no matter what, if you needed a player,
yeah.
now, week long baseball versus one game,
Yeah.
there's the feast or famine thing in the one game, whereas you had, but I could, if my shortstop was injured or whatever, boom, put him in at shortstop. Oh, I need him in the outfield. Oh,
Yeah.
I need him, which is kind of what we get out of Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
But really? So anyway, his stats were 1 of 2 passing for 18 yards, 1 interception. He had 8 catches on 10 targets for 50 yards, and he had 7 rushes for 138 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's sitting there. That's been the problem with, like Kamara. You get these games where randomly Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, 7 rushes for 138, so obviously he broke a couple.
Oh yeah, yeah. The one was like 60 some yards or something.
But normally it's 3 carries
Right.
for
6
8
yards
yards
and
the
3 touchdowns.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Was it Jerome Bettis? He had like 3 carries for 0 yards and 3 touchdowns. Somebody like it was a legit
I don't know how you
stat.
get
It was
0
a legit
yards
stat.
and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, it was an
Maybe it was
actual
4
stat.
carries for 3 touchdowns and 0 yards.
Something, but it was a crazy stat. But
Yeah.
or
Well,
like a throwback to John Kuhn, where it's 3 carries, 3 yards, and
Yeah.
he'd have those random games too.
Well,
But,
I saw someone complaining on a Facebook fantasy group that he lost to two quarterbacks in a 1 quarterback league. He lost to Goff and Hill.
Yeah.
They put up 80 some points between
Yeah.
the two of them,
Yeah.
and I mean it was just crushing. But as I mentioned, Jared Goff, he was next in line, plus 19.99, 24 of 29, 412 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4 rushes, 21 yards, perfect passer rating.
Yeah, only 5 incompletions, and
When you
no
throw for
turnovers.
400 and some yards,
Yeah,
and you get 4 tutties,
Yeah, buddy of ours I was talking to him the other night, and he was joking. He was like, "I think Goff just got all the picks for the season out last week.
5 of them.
Through 5 in one game, and they still won that.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe they still won that game, but and then he comes back this week. So that's the only thing with Detroit is, they look like a legit
Oh yeah,
Super Bowl winning team, but Goff has to put these games up in
Right.
the playoffs and
Right.
not the games where it's, where they have to end up relying on either defense or Jameer and David Montgomery, where Jared Goff is, 12 of 18 for 180 for
right,
1 touchdown.
right. And they're consistently going for it on 4th
Yes.
and 5 or fewer yards.
Yep.
So
yeah.
next up, we've got Jameis Winston throwing everything that he could, plus 19.47, 30 of 46, 395 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 rush, 8 yards. It's what you,
Jameis,
it's what you
again,
expect with Jameis Winston.
Yeah, he's very similar kind of feast or famine a little
Yeah.
bit. I have him in one dynasty league, and I just haven't, I guess, had the guts to throw him in the super flex spot. But he had like 30 points in that dynasty league, so
Yeah.
so it's
Might have to make a trade with you. Oh, wait, the trade deadline passed.
yeah,
Next up, we've got Jonnu Smith, plus 19.29, 6 of 8 for 101 yards. There are 6 catches on 8 targets, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns. It's funny because, he was the guy that everyone said, you don't want him because when Tua comes back, Waddle and Tyreek will be the 2 that he looks at.
I think Tyreek had a decent game.
He did.
Not a Tyreek game. Waddle was like 2 catches on 3 targets for like 20 yards, and
Which was just the opposite of last week.
yeah. So
Because didn't he have a massive game last week?
Waddle,
Yeah.
he started out.
Didn't he have like 2 touchdowns last week, or was
No,
that a couple
no,
weeks ago?
No, Waddle. I don't think Waddle scored, and he had 1 touchdown the week that Tua was back, but he ended up only having like
I thought
At
he had
one
like
point-
145 yards or something a week
No.
or so ago.
No, I
Okay.
yeah, because I had in the Yahoo League, I had Waddle, and I was able. Said thank God for teams that kind of are in the let's see what happens mode. I was able to turn Waddle and Kareem Hunt into Nico Collins.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I mean Nico had that's first
77
play
yarder called back.
because of fat Laramie Tunsil being like a 1 foot over,
Yeah.
downfield, and they took it back. That game was disgusting. There's so many penalties in that game, but
Yeah.
Waddle's just been complete utter bust this season. Obviously with Tua missing so much time, but yeah, Jonnu Smith seems to be the really only true consistent one so far, aside from Achane. Even Tyreek, since Tua's been back, has been up and down as well.
Right.
So
Right. Next up, we've got Joe Mixon. Last night was the Joe Mixon show. Plus 17.8. 2 catches on 4 targets, 44 yards, 20 rushes, 109 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
there was a stretch there from like halftime until like the fourth. Was it the fourth when he scored his 3rd touchdown? I think in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
There's a stretch where he just wasn't doing a whole lot. It was a lot of
Yeah, they weren't.
kind of back and forth.
Yeah.
And
Neither
Stroud
team could
was-
move the ball. And
I mean, as bad as Dallas was, Stroud again did not look very good. Pretty pedestrian.
Yeah.
I had actually picked him up in the Yahoo League to stream this week for Burrow being on bye because I have Nico. But now looking at the matchup that they have, I think it's Tennessee. And Tennessee's defense is actually pretty good. I'm thinking I might have to look elsewhere for a streaming quarterback.
yeah, that might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Moving on to our duds, we've got Kirk Cousins. Luckily, I played Goff over Cousins. Minus 10.25, 18 of 27 for 173 yards, 1 interception, 1 rush, 0 yards. And we had already talked. I mean, they were horrible.
Yeah,
I mean, up and down their
Denver's
lineup.
defense is just
Yep.
pretty good.
Next up, Garrett Wilson, minus 10.02, 4 catches on 8 targets for 18 yards.
Yeah,
But, the one good thing is he'll probably have a new quarterback throwing to him next year.
yeah. Jets just fired their GM.
Yep.
I believe either
Today.
Yes, it was today.
Yeah.
So fired the GM, and if they can get out of Aaron or whatever they got to eat, I think you just eat it. It's going to end up.
Well, he's
being
got
somewhat of a Russell Wilson thing where
he's
they're
got
paying
a
a bunch of money
worse-
just to not have him.
he's got a worse record than Zach Wilson had.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even remember who. The redhead.
Redhead. The only one I can think of is Andy Dalton.
No, the other one. Playing for Minnesota.
Darnold.
Darnold.
Oh, is he redhead?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. He was their quarterback too.
Yeah.
And but Rodgers is below both of them in winning percentage as their starter. So,
Thank you, New York.
And but he got all of his guys
Got him paid.
and has Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson and still can't
And Devontae.
and Devontae and can't get it done.
Breece Hall had a really nice game this
He
week,
did.
though.
He did.
Rest of the season, Breece Hall has like the best running back schedule, but it still makes you nervous with
Right.
how bad Rodgers has been. Because
Right.
Breece has never really been that big of a putting up a bunch of rushing yardage. He's always been a PPR guy.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I have him in a PPR league. So next up, we've got CMC minus 9.31, 4 catches, 5 targets, 27 yards, 19 rushes, 79 yards. Over 100 yards, but
No touchdown.
no touchdowns, and it's the higher expectations.
Yeah, that's second week back from the whole Achilles
Right.
thing too. So granted he's somewhat superhuman. It's going to take a little bit to come back.
Yeah.
So
Agreed. Next up, Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry. He was scary, and I think we already had talked about that. Minus 9.22, or did I talk about it?
I think you talked. Well,
I
Nick
talked
and I
about it.
did talk about it, but we had the whole snafu. Nick and I had done.
Well, yeah, but you wouldn't have talked about that one. This one just happened last Thursday.
Yeah.
Oh,
Did
you
we
would
do
have
it
talked
on
about it Friday.
Yeah.
Did I?
It was either Friday or
No,
Saturday that we did.
I did the Friday one by myself with your daughter. And
Which one did we do?
she chose Washington.
Oh, okay, yeah. And
So I was
yeah. Okay,
I
never
talked
mind.
about
And I was
how
trying
because
to-
she chose Washington.
Yep.
So I talked about how pathetic he was having one catch, two targets for 10
my
yards.
work meeting on Friday. Yes.
Right,
Yep.
right.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
hopefully he bounces back.
Yeah,
Next up,
that one I'll just put in. I mean, there's no targets until late in the fourth was just a horrible
game plan.
Yeah. I mean, he's been one of the reasons that Jaden has been so good, and I was able to, in the Yahoo League, trade Jaden for Joe Burrow because of worries about this. I mean, don't get me wrong, and he hasn't been rushing that much either for Jaden Daniels, so I think the
Right.
defenses are able to kind of sit back on their heels a little bit more.
Yeah.
And obviously that's showing, but to not include him in the game plan was just
yeah,
absolute, just what are you doing?
Didn't quite understand it.
Yeah.
So you want to win, you usually play, make sure you include get your best players into the game. It's kind of like Dallas last night. First thing they did, they got the ball to CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
And whether it was rushing or catching passes, they wanted him involved because they knew that's the only way you're going to win a game. So moving on, we've got Bijan, minus 9.2. He caught all 4 of his targets for 28 yards and had 12 rushes for 35 yards. Not a very good stat line.
No, yeah, like I said, I attribute that to Denver's defense. Like I said, they're crazy good. They're back fully healthy. I think Surtain's been back for 2 weeks now from the concussion. So,
Right.
I mean, and Kirk Cousins again too. Getting a little long in the tooth for the NFL, and
Oh, come on. He's way younger than Rodgers.
he's still been around a while.
He's better than Rodgers right now.
That is true.
I mean,
So-
just a side note. I mean, it's one of those things where, I up until this year, I would have considered Rodgers the greatest quarterback to have ever played. Statistically.
Yes, talent, statistics,
right.
Even talent,
I'm-
but yeah, statistically.
I'm not talking about most rings, most championships, the best player as far as being a teammate, being a team guy, etc. I'm saying statistically with the touchdown to interception ratio, with the number of yards thrown, the wins, the stuff that he did in Green Bay, and to put yourself in a position where you're horrible. And I think it's, it was a lot different with Tom Brady. I don't know why. I mean, Tom Brady statistically is not a better quarterback than Rodgers.
Well, I think Tom, he had some of that I'm Tom Brady kind of, vibe to him. But at the same time, Tom, I think, what he outworks pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why he made
Well,
it.
and he
did,
always
but-
gave discounts.
Yeah.
And they brought in players to make their team better.
Yeah, I think Brady's just more intense when it comes to that side of it than Aaron.
Oh, come on.
probably
Look at the
ever
way
was.
Rodgers looks at people. He's pretty dang intense.
But
How
not
did
in
you
a
miss that?
not in a constructive.
Oh, yeah. You mean that's not a good thing to do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Moving on, we've got our waiver wire. I put on Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, he's, kind of hard to ignore at this point,
Already had his bye.
Yeah, kind of hard to ignore with the usage and the complete disappearance of Jalen Waddle. And that was kind of the thing with Miami, even when Tyreek and Jalen, last year and year before were, top, both top 5
Right.
receivers. That piece they were missing had always been a tight end.
Right.
And now that it seemingly is here, and they're getting creative. They're designing plays for Jonnu as well.
Right.
So obviously that means Jalen Waddle's getting kind of left by the wayside. So
Good thing you traded him.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got Jerry Jeudy. Judy.
Yeah. He had what, a 80-something yard? Was it 88 or
89.
89 sounds
98.
somewhere in. It was a really, really long.
It might have been
touchdown.
98.
Was it 98? I thought.
Yeah, I think it might have been
I thought his was
98. They were
80.
from the 2.
Yeah.
I think it was from the 2, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not positive.
Yeah. But I mean, Jerry Jeudy. I had drafted him in our Yahoo league with like my one of the last picks as just a, new place. Who knows? But obviously
Dropped him 2 weeks later.
it might have even been a week after before the season even
I mean, at least
started.
with my last draft pick, I went with or second to last, I went with Mooney, and Mooney is actually playing decent.
Yeah, well, I had picked up Mooney at one point and then dropped him. I had drafted Chuba Hubbard after week 2, dropped him for somebody else,
that's
and
painful.
then he went completely bonkers. And
Yep.
but Judy, I mean, the Browns, as long as Jameis has a good Jameis game,
Right.
they're the 3 guys there, because even was it Elijah Moore? He even had
Yeah.
a good game,
Yeah.
and then Tillman didn't. So he was, Tillman was the guy that everybody was, the fab dumps and burning your waiver priority to get him, and I think it's just that's going to be the trend with Cleveland, is if it is a good Jameis game, take your pick on who it could
Right.
be is going to be the benefactor.
Right. Next, we've got Nick Westbrook-Ikini.
I think he was the one that had like the 98-yard touchdown.
Maybe he only had 2 catches.
Yeah, Levis was standing in like the back.
Oh,
of the
that's
end
what
zone.
it was.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I want to say Judy had Judy's was still like
Yeah,
80,
yes.
88 or something like.
Yes.
It was still a very deep touchdown, but yes, yeah, Ikine had the giant one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, he only had I think he only had 2 targets too.
Yeah, his
Maybe.
thing has been touchdowns. I
Right.
think he's in the last 4 or 5 weeks has scored in all but maybe one of those weeks. So
And I'm going to mention a changing of the guard, Noah Gray instead of Kelsey. I mean, Kelsey was horrible.
yeah, it was surprising, because they were that game was I mean, it ended up being really good for the Bills, but for a long part of that game was not very. There wasn't a whole lot of offense going on,
No,
I guess. I mean, like Kareem Hunt, going against the Bills, who were like the second-rated run defense, like to play against. He
Yeah.
was horrible.
Yeah. I mean, I think we talked about it like every year. You I mean, for the last couple of years, you always run against Buffalo.
Yep. So
And
yeah, Buffalo came to play, even though they were missing quite a few
Yeah.
offensive starters. I mean,
Right.
Khalil Shakir stepped up big time. Obviously, James Cook, did he end up with 2 scores or just the one? I can't remember.
I don't
Just
recall.
the one. But then
I
Josh
don't
Allen,
recall.
of course, Josh Allen his way to a
Yeah.
great fantasy.
That,
It was
that almost
looking
cost me my
horrible.
game.
Yeah, it was looking really bad. It was like into the third quarter, and he only had I was playing against Nick in the Yahoo
Yeah.
league, and he had like 7 fantasy points. I'm like, oh, Casey's defense might actually give me a shot here, and then he
Yeah.
yeah
Yeah,
So,
that put me down by 2.5 points.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
made
so,
it too close.
Yeah, with Noah Gray, I mean, to me, that's more of a dynasty. If he's not already rostered somehow, to
Yeah,
me,
I think he would be, but I still like him going forward
Yeah, maybe.
a little bit. I mean, it depends on who you have. I mean, in my 16-teamer, where I just dropped Dalton Schultz 2 weeks ago and picked up, I don't even remember who I picked up. I may drop that player and pick up either Jonnu Smith or Noah Gray going forward. Because my guy has a Week 14 bye, as did Dalton Schultz. And if they're relatively close in value over the next 5, 6, 7 weeks, or 6 weeks, I might as well get them. So next up, MVS. 2 weeks in a row, dude. 2 weeks in a row.
Somebody had picked him up in our Yahoo league and then dropped him like 2 days later, and I was like, I wonder. It was during the games, and I go, I wonder. Let's see what his stat line is. I'm like, oh, geez, another.
Another long touchdown.
Yeah.
And I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with him in Green Bay, with Aaron Rodgers, who's one of the most accurate quarterbacks of all time, would throw it and it would land right in MVS's hands, and he would just
week 1
just
against Minnesota,
Yeah.
75 dunk off the hands. Come on.
So I don't know if Derek Carr throws a little bit
Softer pass.
softer. Maybe it's more of a Russell Wilson where it goes 60 yards in the air.
You got to play with Aaron Rodgers, and you got to play with
Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm. And you couldn't make it with either of those two.
Derek Carr, baby.
But Derek Carr is your saving grace.
I mean, they with Olave, still
Banged up.
TBD with the concussion, and no Shaheed for he got injured weeks ago.
Yeah,
there's really, and then obviously, Taysom Hill, but there's just nobody else there, so whatever.
Never saw it coming. Never saw it coming.
Nope.
Last up, I've got Danny DeVito.
Tommy Cutlets.
He's back.
Yeah.
He's back.
Yeah.
They aren't going to give Drew Lock a chance.
Yeah, I mean, that one, maybe it's just let's see if DeVito can go out and, because he had a couple flashes. He had a game or two.
Against the Packers.
Yep. Yeah, so maybe they're like, well, let's see what he does. And if he comes out and falls on his face, maybe we'll see Drew Lock next week. Who knows?
Yeah.
But, I mean, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with Danny Dimes.
I mean, my guess is, is he a free agent now?
No, he's got 2 years left on that $160 million contract.
That's right. So that means they're going to try and
trade him,
and they're just shutting him down so he doesn't get hurt.
He could. And the funny thing is, I was reading another post on Facebook where a fan of the Giants is like, there's like no way that he doesn't have the skill set to still be competitive. So we're going to get rid of him, and he's going to turn into a good quarterback somewhere else.
Probably.
Bound to happen.
Probably.
So moving on, we've got our loser of the week. And I know I've talked about Karen before, and I felt bad because I actually lost to Karen. But this week, Karen decided to lose by 14 points by starting James Conner on bye, Trey McBride on bye, Harrison Butker on IR. One person that she left because she didn't have a running back that she could put in because of other stuff, and she didn't have a kicker, a second kicker. I mean, she easily could have picked someone up for either of those two, but she had no Njoku on her bench. Njoku scored like 16 or 18 points or maybe more and would have won her the game.
I mean, the fact that she only lost by 14 with having 3 people get 0 is...
Yeah. Yeah, she has a decent team.
Yeah.
She's behind me. She's in 7th out of the 8 teams with 6 making the playoffs. I get to play her this week. And she's got guys on bye.
Yep.
And no kicker. So maybe I'll win one.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I got an A+ on my draft.
Yeah, we always again talk about.
Yeah, but you've seen
yes,
that I am 3rd in the league in scoring.
Yeah.
Last year, the difference between me in first place and the last place team was like 600 or 800 points scored.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm not drafting. I mean, like I've said, every week except for this week, mainly because I didn't have anyone to play.
Yeah.
Every week I've had 2 or 3 people get injured during the game.
Nope.
Dak, Olave, you name it. I've lost player, Nico Collins.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had a great team, and it just I was doing well at the beginning, and everyone got hurt.
Yep.
So
that's the way it goes.
It is. So hopefully I can beat Karen. Maybe I'm not going to beat Karen.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. Yeah. So we've got this week.
Yep.
There are 6 buys this week. 6 buys.
Something like that.
Including the big one, the Bengals. So
Yeah.
I know I'm playing against the team that has Jamar Chase. Thank you. Thank you. Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I don't even remember.
No, Buffalo is on a bye.
Yep.
Because James Cook is on my bye. I'm
Yep.
going to have to sit. So, pay attention to the buys.
Yep.
Replace people as needed, etc. So, otherwise, I'm Ozzy.
And I'm Austin.
Have a great week.
Bye.